So love them or hate them, five-finger shoes turn heads. But are these viral Vibrams low-key the new Tabis? So hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a very lovely day. So today we're talking about the Vibram five-finger shoes, which have been a massive trend in fashion lately. And there's a few kind of substacks that I've seen and also different articles as well that have been talking about and questioning whether these Vibram five-finger shoes are going to be the new Tabis. And I just think that's a really interesting question to speculate on, because obviously they are a huge trend at the moment, but I do think it's interesting to explore if they are going to make waves and become as massive in the footwear industry as the iconic Tabis are. So that is what we are going to talk about today, and I'm going to go into a very brief history of both of the shoes, and then I'm going to kind of go into the rise of Vibrams and why they're trending so much at the moment. And then of course I'm going to conclude with whether I think they are going to be the new Tabis and what we can also expect next from this trend. So with that, let's just get into the video. So like I said, I do want to start this video by going into a brief history of both the Tabis and also the Vibrams. And to start with the Tabis, I do just want to make a quick disclaimer before diving into the history, because obviously there is such a deep history to the Tabis, and you could literally make an hour or a 2 long hour video on just the Tabi shoe itself, but for the sake of this video I am going to keep it really brief. So I do just want to make that disclaimer before getting into it. But basically, when considering the Tabi shoes as we know them today, they actually have their roots in 15th century Japan. So originally they were made as split toe socks for the upper class, but over time the Tabi socks became widely adopted, and the colours actually varied depending on the social class and also the occasion. And then if you fast forward all the way to the 20th century, this is when we first saw the Tabi kind of silhouette and design move over into more of a fashion context. So I believe it was in 1988 that Martin Margiela first embraced the Tabi design on the runway. So the show took place in Paris, and again this was the first time that we saw the Tabi silhouette and design become a fashion statement. And then of course, since this debut, Tabis have really become this kind of underground, if you know fashion statement within underground and less well-known fashion subcultures. But if you do move forward to the 2020s, Tabis have had a few kind of viral moments which have brought them very much into the mainstream. So the first thing is of course the different iterations that we've seen of the Tabi design from different brands. So things like the Nike Air Rifts or the Susus, and also we can't not mention the viral Tabi swiper online moment that happened in 2023. And overall I just think that Tabis are kind of a bit of a household name now, and most people do know what they are, or they at least know their design. And now moving on to the history and the rise of the Vibrams, I was really surprised to see that they also have a really interesting history. So basically the Vibram five fingers were first conceptualized in 1999, and the idea came from a mountaineer named Robert Fleury, and he basically partnered with Vibram to develop this technology and basically bring the design to life. And the Vibram five fingers officially launched globally in 2006, and the shoes were marketed as a versatile minimalist footwear solution. And it's quite interesting because when I was researching for this video, I saw that Vibram did actually get in trouble for some of these health claims of the shoes. So I think it was in 2014 they had to settle a nearly $4 million lawsuit against them because people were claiming that the health benefits weren't backed up or not true. And even though they did have these claims against them, they did still keep producing shoes shoes, and they did still keep gaining popularity in the barefoot and also just general athletic communities. But then in terms of the real rise of Vibrams and how we're thinking about them today in a very fashion forward context, it was really in the 2020s that the lifestyle aspect of the brand really started to ramp up. So I think it was literally in 2020 that the brand collaborated with Balenciaga, and they also had some other really high fashion collaborations, and this really helped to first bring it into more of a fashion context. But really in 2024 and also in 2025, this is when we've seen the absolute explosion of the Vibram FiveFingers, and we've seen it worn by pop culture celebrities like Julia Hobbs or Paloma Elsesser as well, and even Doechii has been seen wearing these, and all of this has really helped boost their popularity and also caused them to go viral online. So effectively we've got two footwear icons here. One is grounded in centuries of history and the other is more recent, but still a fascinating evolution from function to fashion. But what I find really interesting is that both have had this cultural crossover into fashion, but does the Vibram have what it takes to gain the same kind of cult-like following as the Tabi, or potentially even surpass it? Well, funnily enough, a lot of people are truly speculating on this, and Emma Hope Allwood recently asked if Vibram FiveFingers are the new Tabis in her newsletter that's called Off Brand, and Georgia Graham also echoed a similar sentiment, and she wrote in her Substack that the Tabi design has now gone fully mainstream, and in a way it's kind of done, to quote exactly what she said. And she also suggests that the single toe split just doesn't cut it anymore, and that we're all looking for something more, and that something could be the Vibram FiveFingers. So to help speculate on this, let's discuss what would have to be true to make Vibrams the new Tabis. And I do just want to make the disclaimer that this is all, of course, my personal opinion and all speculation, like I said. But the first point that I want to mention, and the first thing that I think would need to be true in order for Vibrams to be the next Tabis, would be all to do with the timelessness, and if they are able to maintain or create this timeless appeal. And the reason that I say this is because I personally think that Tabis do have a timeless appeal, and even though they have had a few viral moments, when you consider 2023 or even more recently when Tabis have come to more of the forefront of fashion consciousness, they do still have a timeless appeal despite this virality, and they've always been a staple of the underground fashion scene, and the people who truly appreciate the history and also the chic kind of avant-garde aesthetic of these shoes will always consider them as a timeless staple in a way. And I do think if Vibrams are going to reach the same iconic status as the Tabis, then they will need to maintain and also hold on to an element of timelessness. And I actually do think that the Vibrams do have the potential to become a timeless footwear silhouette, because if you think about it, the Vibrams were designed literally 20 years ago, and this was before social media was even a thing, and they were designed to enhance performance in activities like running or hiking, trail running, or even yoga as well. And because of that, even though yes, the aesthetic and the subversive kind of weird design of the Vibrams are definitely a thumb stopper on social media, they still do have a lot of utility behind them. And I think that the communities that really love and wear and buy the Vibrams for the functionality aspect will still continue to love them once the viral trend stops, and in a way that does give them this timeless appeal and timeless quality rather than just a passing or viral trend. And to be honest, just overall, I do think that it is the functional aspect of the Vibrams, which could mean that they are the new Tabis, or they could at least build a just as big cult-like following as the Tabis. And it's interesting because this is really being backed up by what people are saying online. So for instance, I was looking at the TikTok trend forecaster called Fashion Addict, and she calls the silver sequin Vibram FiveFingers the representation of fashion in the next 5 years. And her reasoning for saying this is because she says that people are getting more and more into health conscious clothing and having clothing and footwear that really can benefit us day to day. And because of that, she says that we could be in for this long-term shift where footwear with really bold and kind of weird aesthetics due to the functionality becomes overall just more acceptable in people's daily dress. And then another separate point that I do want to make and bring up when speculating on if Vibrams could be the new Tabis is the fact that despite all the hype, the actual company Vibrams has kind of stayed quite quiet and they've not leaned into the trend too much. And of course they have done some really cool collaborations and campaigns, but overall they really haven't overdone the cultural moment. And I actually think by staying quiet, this is a kind of genius move by the company, because I really do think by doing this and by adopting this tactic, they're sort of letting the subculture and the underground fans of the Vibrams grow more organically. And I do think that this is a crucial element of them positioning themselves as a more timeless brand. And again, it similarly relates to the Tabis and the fact that they've been worn by underground fashion circles for decades. And I really do think that Vibram's approach with all of this will really help the true fans of the footwear stick around for a lifetime. And that could literally be because of the functionality, like I mentioned before, or it could be because some are truly a fan of this interesting aesthetic. So I really did want to mention Vibram's whole approach and response to this, because I do think it is really crucial when considering the future of the Vibram footwear. And to conclude, honestly, all of these points do make me think that Vibrams do have a lot of staying power and potential in the footwear industry overall, and I do think that eventually they could reach the same level of iconic status as the Tabis. And while they might be a little bit more niche or arguably a little more ugly than the Tabis, their functional roots and their embrace by avant-garde fashion could definitely propel them into a cult classic, just like how the Tabi shoes became this as well. So of course, I'm intrigued to hear if you think that Vibrams could be the new Tabis, if you like this trend generally, if you would wear these shoes, if you even own some of the Vibrams. I actually think that I am just going to get some of their general shoes, not even a collab, because I've been looking at their website and they do have some really interesting designs. So I personally do really love the aesthetic of these, but I am of course really intrigued to hear what you think of these and what you think of this video overall. So definitely do leave a comment, and as always, subscribe if you liked this video, leave a like, and also message me on Instagram if you want to as well. So until the next one, I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.